Greetings programs, welcome to episode 22, Why It's Wrong to Murder or Rape People. Content warning, this contains discussion of things like murder and rape, and also squicky things like standing on a nail barefoot and feeling it sink into your foot. Also that hurts. I doubt that any of what we are going to discuss will trigger anybody, but that's not my call. And this subject may generally not to be your taste right at this second, so you have been warned. So today's episode is going to be another one of those epistemology and philosophy type ones, where we look at something that's so obvious everybody thinks they know the answer already. And we will likely discover that no, it's not actually that obvious after all. And the number one way that people find this stuff out is when they start to argue with somebody, and then they discover that their assumptions are crumbling underneath them. And when that happens, people tend to get defensive and angry, because that's what people do. So why is murder and rape actually wrong? Well, like all things philosophical, yes, even something this serious, it depends on your point of view. If you are operating from the point of view that anything you want to do is the right thing, then murdering other people isn't wrong. But most of us would consider that evil or something. Let's assume you are not evil or broken in some way, and were not raised as a child soldier. Why do most people, in most cultures, under most circumstances, think that murder and rape are bad? Murder, herein, is defined as pointless, unjustified killing. For example, walking out of your door and slitting the throat of the first person you encounter for no discernible reason. Rape I am defining as stereotypically violent sexual assault, not some clever grey area involving clouded judgment, alcohol, or whatever. So, why do we consider such things bad? Well, the short version, if you're in a hurry, is empathy. That's it, go home. But I shall explain. Empathy is a mental trait that complex life forms have that let them feel or understand the pain of another. Dogs, apes, monkeys, and more can understand that another animal is in pain, and thereby try to protect them, or bring them food, or generally keep them company if they can do nothing else. Other animals can do this too, but you see it best in social species with big brains, like humans. When we see another person in pain, the same parts of our brains activate as when we ourselves are in pain. Even thinking about it can do it. Remember that content warning about standing on a nail? Anybody feel a little bit, There you go. Chances are, if I go into great detail talking about how when you are barefoot and you stand on an upright nail and you feel it penetrate into your foot and tear through the fibers in your body and grate on the bone, it would gross out a few of you. And if you even think about it for a moment, you can probably feel it happening to yourself. Even if you've never in your life actually stood on a nail. Those are our mirror neurons at work, projecting another's pain onto us, so that we can understand and learn from it without having to suffer through it ourselves. Just like when the lions eat our friend, we can understand how terrible it was, and thus be impelled to fear and avoid lions in a very serious way, far more seriously than would occur if somebody simply told us about lions being bad. See footnote number 1 for details about mirror neurons. Okay, so that's empathy, and a little bit about its biological cause. Social animals have empathy because it aids the group, and thus is selected for by natural selection, because a strong group survives and thus will breed. Okay. But how is that the basis for morality? Well, it's not complicated. We don't want terrible thing X to happen to us. So when we hear about it happening to others, we feel their pain on some level. And so this leads us to label such things as wrong, and then try to codify some laws to nail it down or explain it to others, such as when we see another person being hurt by a third person. And this process is why in the modern era, when one group tries to oppress another, they will spend significant effort to dehumanize them, to label them as cockroaches, or filthy Jews, or rats, or vermin, thereby making it seem okay to do terrible things to them, and not trigger an empathy response in those committing the acts, or in others looking on. See footnote number 2 for morality and its basis. What's that you say, imaginary person? In a previous episode, we talked about burning cats alive as a form of entertainment, and now we don't. So how did we evolve that much more empathy in just a few hundred years? Excellent question, especially for an imaginary person. As mentioned in the aforementioned video, we as a species did indeed engage in things that modern folks would find horrifying, such as burning live cats, slavery, public torture of prisoners, and similar in various parts of the world at various times in the past. And evolution takes a long time typically, so how did we evolve so fast? Well, we didn't. Or we did, depending on your point of view. What happened was that our existing circle of empathy expanded as our knowledge expanded. We did not evolve anything new biologically, but the knowledge that we had did grow. As we learned about the world and about other people and other life forms, we learned that no, people with dark skins are not soulless animals that just happen to look like people. They really are people. And animals may not be people, but they do still feel emotions and pain, and we now know that. We also know that we too are animals, just like them, only smarter, mostly. And as our travel and trade with other nations increased, we gained the ability to go to other countries in a matter of hours rather than months, and we were able to stop treating everybody like unfathomable foreign devils that lived months and months away. We learned that they were like us, which made it difficult for governments to convince us that it was fine to exterminate them all like rats. Similarly, once we learned through science, again, that white people are not inherently superior to blacks in some magical way, we eventually ended slavery, though the aftermath is still with us. Sure, things like war and variations on slavery are still with us, but not with the casual air of previous centuries. Wars broke out over such things. See footnote number 3 for a list of other videos dealing with morality. It wasn't that our ancestors didn't brain good, or that they didn't morality good either. It was that they didn't book good, or science good. That's the difference. And now we do science good, and so we know. Under the skin, those funny talking people are just like us, although apes can with sign language. They feel like we do, even if they don't think as complicated as we do. We know this now. And so we cannot simply be horrible to other people with a clean conscience. We actually have to work at it. Which means that the percentage of the population that can casually do horrible things to other people is much lower than it was. It takes training now, and dehumanization, effort. Whereas in the past, the dehumanizing part, that was already done. Because without the science, without the scientific evidence, we could easily and simply believe our leaders when they told us that the foreigners had no souls, that they were just soulless talking animals, and that it was okay by God or whatever to just kill them in the name of humanity or our village or our tribe. Well, is this true? Is there evidence to support this? Have we really gotten less horrible to each other over the last few decades and even centuries? Yes, there is evidence for this. See footnote number 4 for a talk by Steven Pinker called Better Angels of Our Nature, where he goes over this in great statistical detail with all the evidence you could ever want. Although we might think otherwise, given the horrible images available on the evening news, especially biased ones like Fox News, violence of all kinds is down. From wars to sexual violence to even violent crime. All down. And it has been on a downward trend for as long as we've had statistics for it. Yes, even if we include occasional bumps like World War II. Okay, so what makes such things actually wrong? Well, that's very simple. Do you want any of those things to happen to you? No. Oh, there you go. Or to put it in more formal language,
a particular action or choice is moral or right when it somehow promotes happiness, well-being, or health, or it somehow minimizes unnecessary harm or suffering, or it does both. A particular action or choice is immoral or wrong when it somehow diminishes happiness, well-being, or health, or it somehow causes unnecessary harm or suffering, or again, it does both. And notice that nothing about this is subjective or relativistic. The fact that murder causes harm or that saving a life minimizes it is not a personal opinion that's only true for me. Harm, pain, suffering, health, well-being, these are real things. They're not contingent on my mind. I don't have to agree that you're dying for you to actually be dying.
Thank you, Scott Clifton. A link to his treatise on morality can be found below in footnote number 5 or as part of the playlist in footnote number 4. So, to wrap it up, it's wrong to murder and rape because the victim does not want to have horrible things happen to them. And we have evolved as a social species to see that as possibly happening to us using our own empathy, and we don't like that. So we have coded that into our morality and then into our laws. So, from the moral stance that we should not do unto others that which we should not like done to us, nothing more is really needed than that simple rule. That's all for today, folks. I'm trying to keep these things a little shorter. Tune in next week for either something about the scientific method or how to do rebuttals right. Bye for now.